God, if I could turn back time, just one night. I am not a hero, nor am I a villain. I'm just a poor boy who grew up by the shores of the sea islands where people believe the ocean has a soul and every wave carries the whispers of our ancestors. I used to think, if I had money, I would be respected. If I had fame, I would no longer feel ashamed when looking in the mirror. And then, one stormy night, I found a strand of golden hair shimmering like the last rays of sunlight, a seeming miracle, but in truth, a gateway to a series of irreversible mistakes. I used it to trade for glory, but I didn't realize I was gradually selling the soul of the first girl who saw me, not for what I had, but for who I truly was. She was a mermaid, and I was the one who betrayed the love of my life. Once upon a time, when gullah songs still echoed by the fire, when people believed the sea had a soul and each wave carried the memories of ancestors, the story of Malik began. Malik, 22 years old, was born into a poor family on the Sea Islands, along the coast of South Carolina. He was Gullah, a people who had preserved the soul of Africa through centuries. His life consisted of quiet mornings by the shore, picking up old shells, bottles, and broken fragments washed ashore by the tide. While his peers went off to college or sailed away from the sea, Malik stayed behind, bearing the burden of caring for his mother and his half-paralyzed younger brother. A parched life made Malik reserved but resolute. He was accustomed to scornful words and disdainful glances from tourists passing through the island. Sometimes, gazing at the vast seascape and the moonlight shimmering on the water's surface, he wondered if his fate was like those shells, cast adrift, trampled, and forgotten. That morning, after a bitter rejection from a girl at the market, someone he had shyly given a gift to, Malik walked along the beach, as he often did when he needed to escape the world. The sunlight after the rain stung his skin, and the smell of salt weighed heavily in his lungs. He tried to stay calm, but his heart felt as heavy as if it were carrying stones. And then, in his most aimless moment, he saw something rippling, small like a white flower petal, glinting metallically amidst the wet sand. It wasn't trash, nor was it a feather or a random piece of string. It was a strand of hair, but it wasn't human hair. It was long and soft, gleaming like golden scales at the end of an oil lamp. When Malik touched it, it quivered. It had texture, warmth, it was alive. Like the soul of a woman, and the way it curled around his palm made his heart skip a beat. Malik stood frozen in the wind. The hair shimmered under the sun, like a whisper from the ocean sent to him. It didn't smell like human hair, but carried the scent of salt mixed with an unfamiliar flower. In that fleeting moment, Malik knew he was holding something beyond reason, something not of this world, something that was about to change his destiny. Yet he had no idea that what he had picked up was not just an object to trade for wealth, but a challenge whispered from the depths of the sea. But who could have guessed a single strand of hair could change a person's very soul? Gold glimmered in the poor man's hand, a rare beauty amidst the impoverished sands. Malik brought the strand of hair home, treasuring it like a precious gem, feeling for the first time that his hand held something profoundly mystical. In the village, no one understood what it was. They only wanted to touch it, gazing at it in awe. Malik knew he couldn't let it waste away, its light fading. He sought out an old weaver in the village, Miss Ola, who often used hair to craft dream catchers and protective charms for children. When she saw the strand, she hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly, her eyes never leaving it. She skillfully wove it into a single lock, twisted into the shape of a heart, like a symbol of an eternal vow. Malik took that lock of hair to the city of Charleston, to an antique dealer. In the dim warehouse, it was the only thing that radiated light. Within just a week, rumors of the strange golden lock spread far and wide. A wealthy black woman, a former fashion designer, spent nearly her entire fortune to possess this divine lock of hair. She called it the hair of the sea's soul. The lock appeared in a high-end exhibition and became a new trend. Singers, artists, and Black models from all over flocked to the Sea Islands. Fashion blogs began mentioning Malik as a phenomenon, rising from obscurity to a golden icon. He was invited to interviews, podcasts, and luxurious editorial photo shoots. Leaving behind the impoverished sea, Malik became a fashion icon for people of color, bringing the breath of Africa to the nation. He bought his mother a new wooden house and secured the best hospital care for his brother. But fame is like the ocean's waves. The higher it rises, the more dangerous it becomes. Everyone demanded more. The market wanted more golden strands, longer, more distinctive. As if lulled by a siren's shadow song, Malik returned to the shore. This time, not to find peace, but to ask for more, to take more, to trade for more status. But the sea never gives freely. Each strand came at a higher cost. Each night, the sea grew quieter, and each glance from beneath the waves began to carry a warning. All right, my dear audience, get ready for a story that will leave you in awe about love, betrayal, and a mermaid with dazzling golden scales. Take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. It's always exciting to see you joining us from all over the world. The sea never speaks beforehand. It sings. And on a night when the golden moonlight, like straw, poured over the marsh trees by the shore, Malik heard the first song that did not belong to this world. It wasn't a sound, but a feeling. Like the lullaby of his grandmother when he was still wrapped in blankets, like the silent chant of the ancestral land when the seasons returned. Malik had only intended to step into the water to clear his mind, but then he stood frozen before a sight that made his heart stop. The seawater was as clear as crystal. A circle of silver light, as if woven from moonlight, radiated outward, and within that circle of light, she existed. Lumina. Her skin was the interplay of night and dawn, her long golden hair like fire, cascading down to her waist. The scales on her body didn't just shimmer with gold, but changed colors with the rhythm of her song. Each of her movements seemed to awaken the silent sea. Malik's first reaction was fear, then fascination, and finally, surrender. He sat by the shore, just watching, like a child seeing unblemished beauty for the first time in his life. Lumina didn't speak, she sang, an ancient gullah song transformed with melodies that only those born of the water could sing. From the day he was born until that moment, Malik had never heard anything that felt so familiar yet touched him to his very core. He began to tell her about the world of humans, about fleeting youth, about the market and betel nut stalls, about street music and the fiery days on the island. His voice was no longer hesitant but grew soft, as if he were rediscovering a part of his soul that he had lost in the days of chasing fame. Lumina listened intently. Then, from within the sea's embrace, she drew out a strand of hair, still warm, and offered it to him. A faded lock of hair, a symbol of trust. In that moment, Malik didn't think about gold. He thought about what he held in his hand, about the being before him, about what could unfold when you no longer wanted anything at all. Perhaps, when someone has grown accustomed to pain, their soul becomes more open to purity, even if it comes from the depths of the sea. Love, when it first blooms, is often soft, like morning mist, fragile, gentle, and full of promise. But when the winds of life whip through, can it survive amidst the dust of fame and the storms of greed? From the night Lumina gave Malik the faded strand of hair, he was not only loved but also empowered by something strange. It was as if each lock she gave carried a sacred energy, a force that drew wealthy collectors, that kept the fashion world chanting his name. And Malik, unwittingly, became a harvester. At first, he kept that one lock of hair as a treasure, cherishing it so much he dared not unravel it. But when calls started pouring in from Charleston, from Atlanta, even from New York, everything began to change. An art gallery director paid 6 figures just to own a strand of the deep sea's soul. Malik hesitated, but then nodded. A week later, he returned to the familiar shore. Lumina was still there, waiting for him with eyes as gentle as water. They sat together, sharing trivial stories. When she casually handed him another lock of hair, a small, wordless gift, he took it, but this time, he didn't keep it. He sold it, and kept returning. Each return drew Malik deeper into a world he had once only dreamed of. He opened a small gallery, then a larger one. He appeared on television, in talk shows with celebrities. People called him the boy of the sea, the new soul of Gullah. He began to change, from his clothing and gait to the calculating look in his eyes. But Lumina, she didn't know. To her, the locks of hair she gave were a connection, a piece of her soul entrusted to the only human she believed in. Each strand was a song, a memory, a heartbeat. She loved him, truly. Until one day, at a street festival in Charleston, amid colored lights and blaring music, a famous black singer appeared wearing a headpiece that shimmered with gold. Not ordinary gold, but scales. Golden scales, scales of the sea. Her scales. Lumina stood far off, hidden in the shadows, watching the image blazoned clearly on a giant LED screen. Each dance step of the singer was a knife's cut, each camera flash a blow to her trust. She collapsed onto the wet sand. Lumina's heart shattered, like sea foam crashing against rocks. That night, the sea turned strangely cold, not because of the season, but because of rage. Malik came as usual, but she wasn't there. Only the saltier water, the sharper wind. That night, he returned home with an empty feeling. The next morning, he looked in the mirror. On the skin of his wrist, a purple bruise-like mark, as if from sunburn, appeared. It didn't hurt, but it silently spread. Day by day, his skin grew rough, then hardened like coral stone. His eyes turned bloodshot, like the red of deep-sea currents. He didn't know that the curse had begun. Lumina no longer appeared. The sea no longer sang. Only the howling wind and crashing waves remained, like a relentless punishment. Malik had taken love and traded it for fleeting satisfaction. But he didn't know. When a mermaid loves, it is not merely love, it is a pact. And when that pact is betrayed, the sea is no longer merciful. Do you think Malik deserves to be cursed? Or is he just a lost soul caught between two worlds that never truly welcomed him? No one can escape the sea forever, just as no one can escape themselves. When his skin began to crack like bleached coral, when his breath grew dry as if stripped bare by salty winds, Malik understood that the curse was not merely a punishment, it was a message. And that message forced him to recall what he had long forgotten, the true meaning of love. He knelt before Mama Thelma, the keeper of the village's oldest healing herbs, the one who spoke to the wind and could read the thoughts of ancestors in distant thunder. Her hair was silver like volcanic ash, her eyes deep and hollow, as if carrying all the pain of the Gullah land. Mama Thelma looked at him for a long time. No blame, no judgment, just one sentence. True love cannot be begged for. It comes only when a soul becomes pure. With nowhere left to hide, Malik began to shed his old self. He shut down the gallery, returned all the money he had earned from her hair. Every piece of art, every piece of jewelry, every item bearing traces of the deep sea, he sent them all back to the ocean. His hair, once styled to follow the latest trends, was now shaved clean, as a form of self-cleansing. He returned to where it all began, the shores of the sea islands, but this time without greed or questions. Each night, he walked barefoot on the sand, sitting where the waves had just receded, gazing out to where the moonlight touched the water. He spoke, not to seek forgiveness, but to confess. He spoke of his childhood, of meals of plain rice drizzled with fish sauce, of his mother's calloused yet always warm hands. He spoke of nights dreaming of wealth, only to wake to the bells of a poor church. He spoke of the first moment he saw Lumina, of the feeling of being seen by a soul he wasn't worthy of. The sea didn't respond, but the sea listened. Night after night, Malik became a storyteller for the ocean, a man who asked for nothing, expected no reply. Only the wind, the waves, and his gaze fixed on the vast darkness, unsure if anyone was still watching him. And then, on a new moon night, when the sky seemed torn by a faint streak of light, he saw a golden shimmer rose from the water. No song, no movement, just standing there still as the darkness itself. Lumina, she didn't come closer. She spoke no words, but her eyes followed him. No longer angry, no longer broken, just a look that couldn't be named, as if she were waiting for something. Malik didn't approach. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He only bowed his head. The next night, he returned, spoke again, bowed again. And the night after that, and the one after that. The sea grew softer, the wind no longer stung in sharp gusts. On his right arm, the coral-like mark stopped spreading, but remained, like a wound that had begun to heal, no longer bleeding, but never fully gone. And the strangest thing was, Malik was no longer afraid. For when a person has lost everything, they have nothing left to hold onto but themselves. And it is that very nakedness that becomes the invitation for the truest love to return. Can you guess what will happen next? Take a moment to relax, comment with the number 1 or, "I'm still here to keep listening." One night, as Malik whispered old memories into the waves as usual, the sea suddenly parted in two, not by wind, not by currents, but by a force deeper, older, and quieter than all else. A rift opened in the water, as if the heart of the ocean split to reveal the mouth of a pitch-black cave, the breath of the deep. It was the place the Gullah elders called the gateway between human souls and the will of the sea. Only those ready to touch their own depths were summoned there. Malik did not hesitate. His bare feet stepped into the water, past the coral reefs, past clusters of seaweed tangled like matted hair, until his entire body sank into the darkness. The breath of the deep was cold as a forgotten promise. In the cave there was no sound, only the echo of his own heartbeat, resonating like a slow funeral drum. But he was not alone. Sea spirits appeared. Formless, they were mere wisps of water weaving through the space like drifting memories. They swirled around Malik, not touching him, but never taking their eyes off him. And then, a voice rang out, not spoken aloud, but through thought pressing directly into his soul. You betrayed the sea. You took love and turned it into a commodity. You turned a soul into profit. Now, answer. If you could choose again, would you choose love or gold? Malik swallowed hard. There were no words to justify himself. No one left to blame. He had lived through enough repentance to understand that the choice wasn't made on that day at the shore, but long before, when he was a hungry boy staring at the city's glittering lights, dreaming of wealth. But today, he was no longer that boy. He answered, with the calmest thought he had ever had. Love. The sea spirits asked again, do you speak the truth or make excuses? He replied, the truth. Do you wish to possess or to sacrifice? Malik closed his eyes. He had once wanted to grasp everything. Now, he only wanted to return what he had taken. Sacrifice. In that moment, a cracking sound echoed, not from the cave's walls, but from within his heart. An invisible shell that had encased him all this time, a shell of fear, ambition, and deceit, shattered into countless pieces. The fragments fell into the water, turning into tiny specks of light that rose and dissolved. And in that same moment, the breath of the deep began to glow. The cold, damp stone walls suddenly blazed with an emerald hue, and within that light, Lumina appeared. No longer distant, no longer a silent dream, but a clear presence, beautiful, fragile, and sorrowful. She didn't speak, but Malik understood. For the first time, two souls needed no words to connect. The sea was the language of silence, of the deepest truth, and in that silence, she forgave. When he opened his eyes, Malik found himself lying on the shore, his knees touching the sand, his hands still trembling. But the first thing he did was neither to rejoice nor to weep. He simply whispered one phrase, "Thank you." And in the distance, the waves rose gently, like a nod. But does forgiveness mean reconciliation, or is it merely the final step before learning to let go? Stay with us, for the greatest surprise is still to come. But in the world of the sea, nothing happens without a price. Lumina's forgiveness was only part of the response. That night, when the waves seemed to have calmed, a violent tremor suddenly roared from the heart of the ocean. From the deepest, darkest depths of the sea, an extraordinary call echoed through water, wind, and the layers of sand beneath human feet. It was the sound of primal rage. Lumina vanished, swept away by a towering whirlpool of black and purple. Malik only caught her broken call of his name before silence fell completely. King Atlantica, Lumina's father, a half-god, half-spirit entity, guardian of the ancient laws of the ocean, had learned of it. His daughter's forgiveness could not alter the sea's judgment. To Atlantica, humans were breakers of balance, and Malik, though repentant, remained a symbol of greed. Now, to save Lumina, he had to face not only the sea's wrath, but the wisdom of thousands of years that no one dared challenge. Malik was led to the spiral gate, the entrance to the vortex of fate, a place where no one passed through and emerged with their soul intact. It was not a physical labyrinth, but a game of the mind. A series of mental trials where the player did not battle monsters, but their own self, their worst, most cunning, most tempting self. Malik knew he could not win with strength or reason, only with absolute sincerity and sacrifice. The game began with an illusion, a sea crown resplendent, adorned with ancient pearls, gleaming with the gold of trapped souls. A whisper echoed, "Choose to be king, and she will live by your side forever. The sea will be yours, gold will never run dry." Malik stood there, silent. He saw his reflection in the water, eyes blazing with power, lips pursed with desire. But then he closed his eyes, turned away, and walked past the throne without a word. The illusion vanished. The game continued with a living chessboard, where each move was a memory, a wrong step, and the memory would be erased forever. Malik carefully navigated each square, each step a recollection. His mother's smile, his father's voice, Lumina's gaze at their first meeting. At the final square, the ancient voice rang out again. To keep her, you must forget your past. To be loved, you must forget those who loved you. But this time, Malik placed his hand over his heart and said within, "There is no true love if it demands forgetting those who built my soul." And so, the chessboard dissolved. The sea quaked, a column of waves rising high, like an inverted sky. At its center, King Atlantica appeared. His face was not angry but solemn. In his gaze was a scrutiny that held the history of countless generations of humans and the sea, condensed into a single look. He approached, standing before Malik, silent. But then, slowly, he stepped back. The waves receded as if bowing, and from the heart of the ocean, Lumina emerged. She was no longer bound. No chains of water, no desperate eyes, just her, as she was on the first day. Her gaze met Malik's sea, and in that moment, time stopped. No prince, no king, no victor, only two broken souls now learning to piece themselves back together. Malik didn't run to her. Lumina didn't rush to him. They only walked slowly toward each other, as if crossing an ocean that had divided them for so long. No promises, no vows, just a look that said everything, that true love needs no victory, no possession, only the right choice when tested. No one could have foreseen that, just when everything seemed resolved, the ocean would rage once more. It was no longer just Atlantica's cry, but the uprising of the sea itself, primal, wild, unyielding. The sky turned pitch black, waves crashed over thatched roofs, and the land of the sea islands began to be swallowed by water. Villagers screamed, fleeing to higher hills, praying amidst whirlwinds and salty water. Malik stood still in the chaos, seeing clearly for the first time. No matter how deep love was, it could not heal the wrath of an entire world. He understood that this was no longer just his and Lumina's story. This was the story of two worlds, land and ocean. Human and myth and boundaries crossed without permission. In desperation, he sought Baba Otis, the village elder, who only spoke when truly necessary. Baba Otis sat in a half-flooded house, eyes closed, trembling hands clutching ancestral beads. Malik knelt. He didn't cry, just a whisper. "How can I save both worlds?" Baba didn't open his eyes. He only murmured into the wind, "Restore the balance. If you truly wish to bridge two worlds, let your heart be the bridge." Malik didn't ask again. He knew. He returned to the shore, calling Lumina's name with all the unspoken pain and love in him. And she came. Not from the waves, but from deep within the water, her golden hair drenched like the light of a broken Sunday. She looked at him, neither resentful nor joyful. Malik took a step, then stopped. No haste, no pleading. Slowly, he reached into his chest, pulling out a small cord where his heart had kept a piece of petrified coral, a remnant of the curse from before. He spoke, not aloud, but the ocean heard. "You are not just the one I love. You are the daughter of the sea, the pride of Atlantica's kingdom. I am not worthy to keep you, but if I may, I want to be the bridge between land and water, between human and soul." And then, with no gold ring, no chapel, no music, only the waves and wind as witnesses, he knelt, holding out his transformed heart. A proposal that sought no answer, only an invitation. "If you wish, we will redefine love together." The sea fell silent, then rippled. Then moonlight pierced through the clouds, reflecting on the receding water until the village land was dry again, until children could laugh and elders could step out of their homes. King Atlantica appeared, not with anger or authority, but with the eyes of a father and a silent nod. He understood that love could not be forced, but the courage to love could change a world. Lumina stepped forward, not rushing toward him, but walking as if her feet had grown accustomed to the land, as if her heart had chosen to stay. They didn't kiss, didn't hold hands right away. They only stood side by side, looking out at the sea now calm, breathing quietly. The villagers slowly gathered, not fully understanding but feeling it. A child released a seashell into the water, like a gesture of thanks. The women began to sing an ancient gullah song, bidding farewell to an era and welcoming something new. The love story between a man and a mermaid, not just about loving or losing, but about the courage to choose again. And sometimes, choosing again isn't about going back, but stepping forward together into something unprecedented. No one knows what will happen when a mermaid steps into the human world. Will Lumina be able to live on land, or will Malik learn to breathe underwater? Will love be strong enough to withstand time, culture, and curses yet to be undone? That, perhaps, only part 2 can answer. But today, we have witnessed something rare, the rebirth of a soul, through unconditional love and courage that transcends the self. Malik chose sacrifice, not for reward, but for a balance greater than himself. Lumina forgave, not out of weakness, but out of faith, that love heals, not imprisons. And the ocean, at last, grew calm. Just as in our own lives, some things only find peace when we let go of our ego and open our arms wide. You may see this story as a fairy tale. But if you've ever loved, hurt, or lost, you'll understand. Sometimes, all it takes is a heart making the right choice, and the world changes. If you see yourself somewhere in this story, leave a comment sharing your emotions. Let me know where you're watching from and what you've learned. Hit like if you think this story is worth spreading. And if you want me to continue, if you want to know whether the love of the sea can endure on land, then subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, because part 2 is waiting for you. We will meet again, for certain. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see someone joining us from all over the world. Comment the number 1 if you found the story captivating, so we can keep bringing you more incredible stories.